Thank you to everyone who has been here from the beginning, for those that have joined along the way, for those we've lost along the way, for those joining us only and exclusively in our online ministry. I'm grateful. My heart is filled to overflowing for all that we've accomplished, who we are. We've changed a bit. I think, Joe, you've got some photos there. We've changed a bit from our hair, our people in the seats, our location, but we're still teaching successful living from the inside out. So thank you all for being here, for being a part of it. We wouldn't be here without you. So thank you. And thank you, Jennifer. That song's beautiful. I'd never heard it before. Thank you for bringing it to us. It was just lovely. And happy birthday to you. Thank you for being with us and celebrating not only Easter, but your birthday with us. So I appreciate that. Such an important and valuable part of our community, and I really appreciate that. So, my Easter message is rising beyond the old stories. We are going to explore the resurrection and ascension story through the lens of metaphysics and new thought. Now, this is possibly the most important holiday of Christianity and the foundational belief of that faith tradition, and why many people celebrate this particular holiday. The story says that Jesus was crucified on Friday morning. If you remember, there was the Last Supper. That was on Thursday night. It was the Passover, which was a Jewish tradition because he was Jewish, right? And he was arrested that evening and convicted, and they took him to be crucified early on Friday morning. It is said that by about 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, he had died, and they were removing him from the cross. Now, that was a very brief time frame for that type of um, thing, and I'll leave it at that. And he was removed, and they prepared the body, and they placed him in the tomb all before sundown, because that was the beginning of the Jewish Sabbath on Friday at sundown. And in their tradition, they practice rest and reflection from sundown Friday until sundown Saturday. So no one went to the body until Sunday morning. Then the women went to care for the body, refresh the herbs and things that they did in those days. When they got there, the stone had been removed from the tomb and the body of Jesus was gone. And they were very afraid that someone had perhaps stolen this body. But there was an angel there who said to them, "Don't be afraid. It's as he said, he is risen. He is risen." Symbolically, this is a beautiful story in the Christian faith, one of everlasting and eternal life. But does it have meaning for us today in the practice of the science of mind, metaphysics, new thought? Does it have relevance for us? Does the science of mind share the belief of the risen Jesus? Well, that's a tricky question, because on the surface, I have to say no. But we don't teach that Jesus is the only Son of God. We teach that we are all sons and daughters of God, of the divine, of the Most High, that we're made of that one substance, that one source that is the infinite intelligence of the universe. We do not teach that he died and came back to life 3 days later and then ascended up into heaven, up in the sky someplace. We teach that the man Jesus was a very evolved soul, a master, in fact. And he understood his oneness in God more than probably any of us do. I know more than I do, for sure. He didn't teach that God was separate. In fact, he said, "I and the Father are one." Remember those words? You may have heard those. I and the Father are one. Some interpret this to mean that Jesus was God in form. But everybody else, the rest of us, were separate. Maybe in those terms would be called heathens. But we were separate because Jesus died for humanity's sins so that the rest of us could go up into heaven later on. Is that the version y'all have heard? Okay. Just making sure. Now I'm not poking fun at this in any way, shape, or form. I just don't agree with the interpretations that have been taught. The science of mind is very clear that we are all divine beings, sons and daughters of God. Because there's only one. There's only the one power, presence, intelligence, wisdom, substance of all that is. That is the core of our belief and our teaching. Ernest Holmes is the author of The Science of Mind, and he taught that the resurrection means new beginnings, springtime, new thought, possibilities. It's when we wake up from the tomb of fear and uncertainty and lack and limitation that we begin to recognize this resurrection as a symbol for the expansion of consciousness. Because that's what we teach, right? We're teaching this idea of the expansion of our consciousness and this constant growth. Daniel, your meditation this morning was perfect for this message because that's what we're talking about is that expansion of our awareness until we know, like Jesus knew, that we are one in God. I and the Father are one. That was his message. Holmes said the resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separated from God. Plain and simple. Now, as to the ascension part of Jesus' story, at the Passover, the Last Supper, the night before, he told his disciples, "In my Father's house are many mansions." Now, I grew up in the Methodist Church, and when I heard that, this was kind of what I saw: pearly gates, gold streets, clouds and fluffy things everywhere, and now all these mansions, which had to look like Beverly Hills because the only mansions I had ever seen were on the Beverly Hillbillies TV show. Because I lived in a really tiny rural town. But in my studies, I have come to understand that this statement of heaven as being, it's not a place, it's consciousness. It's the consciousness and then a continued expansion. And we say up because we're expanding upwards in higher realms of conscious awareness. That upward spiral that we talked about several times this year already. We never stop growing in our awareness, our evolution, our wisdom. That's what we're here to do. Have you noticed that you're not the same as you were last year, 5 years, 10 years ago? We're all constantly changing and growing and hopefully expanding in our understanding and our awareness. As I was working with this week, the question kept coming to me: could the story of Jesus' ascension, resurrection, be a demonstration of the mastery of the Christ consciousness? Is that really what that story is about? Is his demonstration of the mastery of the Christ consciousness that we teach here, even in the science of mind? Was that his transformation from level 4, kingdom 4, dimension 4 consciousness that we talk about to the next one? And that his whole purpose was teaching us, I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. We're one in this wholeness, and we're continuing to expand. And was that his message that we've missed the mark on? Holmes said, I believe absolutely in the immortality and the continuity of the individual stream of consciousness. Humanity is an ascending principle of life, individuality, and expression through experience and unfoldment. That's kind of saying the same thing, isn't it? Remember the Curtis Mayfield song? Just keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. That's what we do. As this universal consciousness, this bit of it that we are, we keep on keeping on. This lifetime, the next plane of consciousness, the next awareness, we keep expanding. Was that Jesus' message? The story of Jesus' life and his teachings and the example of his expanded consciousness is our salvation. That is not a word you have probably heard roll off my tongue. It's not something we usually talk about in the science of mind, but I think his message to us is that, but I don't subscribe to the way that it's been taught up until now. That Jesus is the only way. I don't resonate with that. I don't resonate with that. He proves what's possible. He proves what's possible. He's a great example of the consciousness that we aspire to. He came, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He came to show us the way of possibility of growing into, expanding into that consciousness that he was, that demonstration that he was. So the question becomes, what old stories of fear, uncertainty, lack, limitation are you still telling yourself about who you are and how life works? What are we allowing to block that flow of expansion of energy through us? Jennifer's song was beautiful. Are you ready to be changed? Are you ready to change? Are you ready to step out of the stories of yesterday? I love that line in the song. Lead me out of the yesterday into tomorrow. What's keeping you from living your best life? If you saw the newsletter yesterday, you may have noticed at the top I had a quote like I usually do, but I made a note in there that this is a quote we're going to use for the entire month. And it's from Neville Goddard. And he says, nothing appears in your life that didn't first pass through consciousness. Nothing appears in your life that didn't first pass through consciousness. Consciousness is the seed. Harvest is the experience. Now, I find this a very powerful contemplation, particularly when I'm looking at why things happen in my life. Anybody else do that? Why did this happen? Be it good or bad. It's like the good stuff, I want to know how I did that. Let's do it again. And if it's the bad stuff, it's like, what did I do to bring that on? But what I've come to realize is in the big picture, in the higher perspective of that, it's all good, right? It's all good because the good stuff I'm enjoying in the moment. That's beautiful and wonderful. And the bad stuff, I'm learning, growing, and expanding through. Because for whatever reason, that's one of the ways that we've chosen to learn, grow, and expand in this experience is through challenges. Remember last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the butterfly and how the butterfly struggle out of that cocoon is what gives it the strength and builds its muscles to be able to use its wings. And when we get in there and try to help it, it can't fly. So we're building our strength through struggle as well. There is a place of realization of the all good. That's when we can begin to see life from a little higher perspective and recognize that even though it may be icky and we may not like it, it may be uncomfortable and inconvenient, it's all good. It's all good. And 9 times out of 10, we are able to look back at some point in our future and see the good that was there. Understanding that our thoughts have power. That's our theme this month, the power of our thoughts. Understanding that and the action required to use those productively. We all use them, right? How productively are we using those thoughts? That can change the trajectory of our lives. Little changes today can change the entire trajectory of our lives. It's like the airplanes that are going to Hawaii, and the co-pilot bumps the little meter a little bit and knocks it off 1 degree. They miss the islands. It only takes one small degree to divert that plane over that long period of time enough that it misses the islands. So the same is true for us. If we can change little things in our lives, we can change that trajectory of where we're going. Ernest Holmes says, we already possess the power. And when we learn to let the old slip away and be replaced by the new, when we no longer carry the burdens of yesterday into our tomorrows, we will find each day a day of resurrection and rejoicing. The burdens are the stories that we're telling ourselves, that we're packing along in a suitcase that we drag along with us of the past, and the way that we have just anchored ourselves to, because it happened that way once before, twice before, 5 times before, it's just going to happen that way again. And we teach possibilities here. The principle's not bound by precedent. Did I say that right, Beth? Oh, and in my talk. So we just need to be aware of that. Those burdens, those stories, those thoughts, those ideas, those little ways we filter our lives that can hold us back. It can be big things like self-worth and self-love that get in the way. I'm not worthy enough. I don't love myself enough to have, to be, to do, to go. Or it can be less complex things like all rich people are crooks. And when we have that judgment, we have those filters, life responds to us through those filters backwards, right? We get it right back to us the same way we put it out there. Those pesky little beliefs that we have that just continue to muck up things and keep our lives going in the same direction, making the same decisions we've always made, the same way we've always made, and getting pretty much the same results we've always gotten. We cannot change our lives from the same consciousness that created them. Einstein said we can't solve we can't solve the problem from the same level of thought that created it. We have to grow, which is why we do grow. We're designed that way. Jesus' teaching at its core is beautiful. It's filled with principles of love and successful living. And the end of his life is a gift. It's a gift and an example that we all go through dark nights. We all have challenges in our lives. And it's a promise, this resurrection story, it's a promise of a new day, of new possibilities, a new life. It's a promise of hope. The Easter story reminds us of one of life's most powerful spiritual truths, and that is new life is always possible. New life is always possible. Beyond the history, beyond the doctrine, resurrection presents the moment we release the old stories and rise into new awareness. It's the moment we truly awaken to our unity in God. I've got a spiritual practice for you this week. Now, you may not need it this week. You might have needed it last week. You might need it next week. You might need it sometime in the future. Put this one in your toolbox. You might need this one. It's called Change the Story That Runs Your Life. This practice is for those times when something or someone goes bad. One of those bad days. Let's just use the example of traffic. You're running late. You're on the freeway. There's traffic. There's people that don't know how to drive. There's construction. Oh my gosh. There's blah, 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 whatever, right? It's just an upsetting time on the freeway. Your practice is to notice your reaction to that. Notice your reaction, how you feel, and ask yourself, what old story is causing this response in me? What do I believe about myself? Do I believe I'm always late? I'm a late person, defined as such. I'm a late person because I've always been accused of that, and I've just accepted that as my mantra. I'm a late person. Maybe it's about the other drivers and blame. Don't know how to drive. Where'd they get their license? What are they doing? We use signals in Arizona. How about circumstances? Why am I here? I don't want to be here. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make that appointment. Didn't want to be out here anyway. Now look at this mess. Blah, blah, blah. Asking ourselves those questions. Depending on the size of the bad, it might take a few days to discover the gift in it. But asking yourself those questions about your reactions when things happen in your life are the ways that we can begin to uncover some of those old stories that are continuing to run our lives, that we continue to react to life through. So this Easter is an invitation to rise up in consciousness beyond those old stories of limitation into the possibility of you and Mother, Father, God being one. Happy Easter, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Would you join me in prayer? As we go within, we recognize that there is a presence, a power, a strength. There's love, unconditioned, pressed down to overflowing, that resides within us, as us, through us. It is the one. It is God. It is Source. It is Spirit. It is that which has created universes and holds the planets in their orbit. It is that which created the butterfly with the amazing transformation that it has, and the way it builds its strength, and all of those little details from caterpillar to beautiful flight. Infinite intelligence. And all of that is here now, present, in, through, and as me, as an expression of it, as it is in, through, and as each one of us gathered here today. It is the one life that lives us. It is peace and harmony and wholeness. It is expressing through us, individualized and uniquely as us, as our lives. And so as I recognize this oneness and this unity, this wholeness that Jesus knew and demonstrated for us, I speak my word for and about all of us. Knowing that as we sit here in this moment of consciousness and conscious connection and awareness of our own divinity, that we simply let go, we release anything that no longer serves us, that no longer serves our greatest yet to be, the next expansion of our own consciousness, and that upward spiral of life. We just set it down right here. We leave it be. We let go. And in doing that, we recognize the freedom, the release, the peace, the wholeness, the harmony that we are, that God is. And we can go here anytime we choose, into prayer, into peace, into surrender, into love. I speak my word this day for each of us gathered, knowing that the peace of this service, our time together, the consciousness of spirit that we hold, this love, we take with us out into the world as we share it to every person we meet throughout our week, and that the world is a better place for us as we become those ripples on the pond of life, of love, of peace. And so it is with a heart filled with gratitude and joy and thanksgiving for this service, each and everyone that is here today, those joining us online, anyone who's ever been here, just knowing abundant blessings for us all and for Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living as it enters its 12th year as a spiritual community serving Scottsdale and Arizona and beyond. We are so blessed. I am so grateful. And I release this prayer to the action of law, knowing that it is already done. It is so. And we affirm this truth together by saying, and so it is.